Alright, so this is my video review for Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And there was a couple things that I noticed within the film that was interesting. The first thing I want to mention is that I looked up before the actual date of when this film is timelined, and it's in 1937. So obviously it was made in the old times, but I need to point that out because there's a lot of references, socially references that would make sense because of that time period. The first thing I noticed was the role of women, and the only major character that has pretty much lines that's a woman is Clooney's wife and the three singing girls by the lake. There are other women such as Clooney's daughters and maybe if there were some women at the baptism service, but they don't play a major role. And it's interesting to note this because of the whole aspect of the back then how the man was mainly the head of the household, the woman was very dependent on the man. All those social standards that was very masculine based. Obviously nowadays we've kind of shifted in the whole movement of feminism and trying to get equal rights, but back then it was very prominent that the man was always the stronghold of the household. And I find it interesting that they portrayed that, especially back since the movies from that time period. So I wanted to point that out. Another social issue I noticed was the issue of the jailman and how Clooney was pretty much dehumanized by his wife and by society just because he was in jail and because I think he had sold drugs and that's how he ended up there. Um, he wasn't even really human. He was dehumanized by society and his wife. And it's interesting that as soon as he's pardoned for his actions, everyone seems to like him again. The crowd goes crazy because of his music. The governor or that guy comes up and speaks and says, "Oh, you're pardoned." He likes him. His wife automatically takes him back. Um, and it's crazy to think that that's just the society that was back then. That's what they were thinking. Like, oh, like they're in jail. Like they're not even normal. They're not human. Like, and then as soon as that's gone, they're just normal, like one of us. Um, but then again, there's also another social standard that was different that I wasn't expecting because if he was in jail, you would think, oh, like he should be able to defend himself. He has to be able to defend himself against all these prisoners. This guy should be strong. It's a social idea of what we have about prisoners nowadays. Oh, this guy just got out of jail. Like, I need to stay away. Like, he could probably beat me up or something. But in actuality, in the film, his wife's fiance ends up kicking his ass. And so that was a social standard that was kind of opposite of what I thought. So I thought that was interesting to note also. Um, and something else that was shown in the movie was how even back then and still today we live in a corrupt society because even after the three of them were pardoned, or the four of them in that case, um, they were still going to hang them. And so that's just another example of how we live in a corrupt society and how that's not something that's now, but has been in the past. Excuse me. And probably a lot further in the past than just that time period. Um, Another one question I had about the film though was how did the governor know that those people were prisoners? Because even though the man that was running against him came in and said, "Oh, they interrupted our KKK meeting," how would that necessarily say, "Oh, these guys are prisoners"? So how would he know that they were in that predicament in order to pardon them? The other thing would be is just because the crowd rooted out the guy that was running against this man, how unless this guy, the other guy that pardoned him, was governor previously, how does he have power to pardon them now? He wasn't elected. Like was the rooting out of the other guy? his official election. That was a little confusing to me, but I guess we will talk more about that in the discussion in the class. But overall, the movie was pretty good. 6.5, 7 out of 10 probably. I know I rate movies hard, but I mean that's what I thought about it. But thanks for watching.